Hello guys, welcome to the video. So in this video, we are going to discuss our question maximum consecutive ones, second part. So in the input, we are given an array that contains only 0 and 1 and we are given a number k. We are required to find the maximum number of consecutive ones and we have a special power that we can flip our zeros k times and make it 1. Okay, let's understand our question. So let's say this is an array given to us of zeros and 1. Right, we are required to calculate the maximum consecutive one and we have a special power that we can flip our 0k number of times. Right, so let's say let's say k is equal to 2. So that means you can flip 2 0. So let's see some example. So let's say here we flip 0 and make it 1. Here also we flip 0 and make it 1. So how many consecutive ones we got now? We got 4, right? So let's see more example. Let's say here you change the 0 and make it 1. Here also you change it and make it 1, right? We can flip it k number of times, right? 2 times. So now how many consecutive ones that you got? 1 2 3 4. Again it's 4, right? So that's how k is gonna help us. Perfect. So now if you have understood the question, let's discuss the approach, what we are gonna do. So we will be taking a I variable, right, and a j variable, right? J is initially -1. We are gonna discuss it why we are doing it. Okay, j is initially -1. So we are gonna do nothing. We are gonna simply traverse and we are gonna calculate. We are gonna calculate the maximum consecutive ones, right? And we know that we are allowed total k number of zeros. So let's see how we'll do it. Okay, it is simple. So here I is at 0. So that means I am required to calculate its length, right? So how will I calculate its length? So to calculate length, we will use the simple formula. To calculate my length, I will use I minus j. My I is equal to 1. My I is equal to 0 and I got 1 value. So that means maximum number of consecutive ones here will be 1, right? So if I subtract j from I, what will I get? 1. 0 minus -1. So my length will be, let me write length. So my length here will be 1, right? Eventually, I am required to calculate the maximum length, right? My maximum length will be also be 1 as of now. Now what we do is increase our I. And now we see that I is equal to 0. Now we got to make sure that we are only allowed k number of zeros. So we have to create a variable so that we know the count of zeros. So I'm going to call it 0 count. That will take care of my zeros count. So now my I is at first index which got a 0. So my 0 count will be equal to 1. Perfect. So what will be my max length? It is going to be 1 minus -1. That is going to be 2. Right. My length and max length both is going to be same. Now I'm at my second index. Here it is 1. It is 1. I'm going to simply calculate my length. 2 minus -1. That is going to 3. Right. No need to change your 0 count because we haven't got a 0. Right. Now we are at the third index and we got a 0. So for what we do first, we increase our 0 count. It is 2. If it is 2, it is fine. I can include this because I can include k number of zeros. So I'm going to increase its length to 4 and my max length is also going to be 4. Perfect. Now let's see what we are going to do. We are at fourth index. So now we are at the fourth index. Our 0 count got increased to 3. But we know that 3 is greater than the k that was given to us. It is greater than 2. So what we are going to do? If we want to include this 0, right, we got to exclude 1. Why is that? Because we can only take max 2 zeros. We can only flip 2 zeros. So if I want to include this, I got to exclude it. Right. So I might get a better answer right in the future. So what I'm gonna do? Here's my j, right? So my j will get increase till when? Till it gets a 0. So here it is not 0, here it is 0. So my j is going to get here. So what I'm going to do now, let's see. So what j is doing here? J is acting as a boundary. J is acting as a boundary. Let's see why is that. So if we calculate I minus j now, if we calculate I minus j, we are only including 2 zeros, right? What will be it? It will be 4 minus 1, that is 3, right? So that's why j is acting as a boundary. We are excluding a 0 and we are including a new one. So if that's the case, we also have to decrease our 0 count. Okay, you will understand it when you get to see more examples, but for now, stay with me. So my length got 3 and it is less than max length, so I'm going to do nothing, not going to update my max length. Now my I gets to 5. Right, so what it's going to do? Increase my length, it is going to be 4. Perfect, same as my max length, I got to do nothing. Now, I am at my 6th index, I got a 0. So I'm going to increase my 0 count, update it to 3. Perfect, I see that my 0 count is greater than k. It is greater than k. So what do I got to do? Is exclude a 0. Right, so how will I exclude the 0? I will keep increasing my j until it hits a 0, because it is acting as a boundary. It is not including this 0, it is including after it's 0. So I'm going to keep increasing it until it hits 0, and then I'm going to decrease my 0 count because I'm not including this 0. What will be my length? My length will be I minus j, 6 minus 3, that is 3. Right. And let me, my max length is 4. Perfect. Now what I do? I simply do nothing, increase my I, again I get a 0, right? So my 0 count is going to become 3. So if my 0 count becomes 3, what I do? Think about it yourself. If my 0 count becomes greater than k, I do nothing, I keep increasing my j until I hit a 0, and I move one step and here it is 0, right? And I decrease my 0 count, because here I'm excluding my previous 0 and I'm including a new 0, right? Now what will be my length? It will be 7 minus 4, that is 3, right? 3 length, as you can see, right? Now what? Again, I increase my I, my length will be 4, right? It is same as my max length, right? And it's 1, so I don't gotta do anything with the 0 count. Again, my I gets at 9th index, it's a 0, so I increase my 0 count, my 0 count becomes 3. My 0 count becomes 3, and then I gotta exclude my previous 0. So I'm gonna keep increasing my j until it hits a 0, until it gets 0 value. So here it is not 0, but here it's a 0, so that I can exclude my previous 0. Then I decrease my 0 count, it is going to become 2. Perfect. And now what will be my length? Using I minus j, 9 minus 6, that is 3. Right, it is still not greater than my max length, no problem, right? Then I again increase my I, and I calculate my length, it is I minus j, that is 4. And let's say here we got one more element, right? That is 1. So eventually we increase our I, right? It's 11th index, and we calculate our length, it will be I minus j, it will be 11 minus 6, it is 5. I'm going to update my max length to 5. So that's how my code will work. That's how we'll calculate our max consecutive ones. So now let's try to code it. Our code is simple, just the way we discussed. Okay, nothing new. So let's see. So what we were required? We were required a count, or I will call it 0 count, that number of zeros are there, right? What else? A j, that is initially minus 1, and I'm going to create a variable max length, which is going to give me my answer, max consecutive zeros, max consecutive ones, that is also 0. Now first step is to traverse my array, or int I is equal to 0, I is less than array dot length I plus plus. Perfect. Now, the first condition, what if my value is 0? If that's the case, then I'm gonna do nothing and simply increase my 0 count. Right. Now, after it, I check if my 0 count is greater than k. Right. If 0 count is greater than k denotes the number of times you can flip. You can flip your 0. So if 0 count is greater than k, that means you got to exclude it, right? So you are going to keep increasing your j until you find a 0, right? So if you find your 0, that means you have excluded it, right? If you find a 0, that means you have excluded it. Perfect. So I'm going to decrease my 0 count here. 0 count minus. Perfect. And then I get out of the loop. I calculate my length. I know to calculate my length, it is simple. I minus j. Right. And eventually we need the max length. So max length is equal to whichever is greater. Max, my current length versus my max length. Right. And then I get out of the loop. I return max length. Right. So that's my code. Let's say it. Perfect. Now let's try running it. See if this works or not. As you can see, accepted. Perfect. Now submit it. Perfect. Now let's quickly dry run it. How our code is exactly working. Okay. So I'm gonna copy it. Perfect. Decrease its size. Bring it here. Okay. Yeah. Let me erase it. And then we are gonna understand from the start that how it is exactly working. Right. For better clarity. Perfect. Now, let's see. So initially what we declared a j that is initially -1. Right. And our I is, let's say, here. I is here. So it is not a 0, right? It is not a 0, and our 0 count is currently 0. It is also not greater than k. So we are going to calculate our length. Our length will be I minus j, that is 1. Perfect. Then our I gets here, right? So if it is a 0, then we are going to simply increase our 0 count. It gets to 1. Perfect. Then what we do? Calculate our length. Our length is 1 minus -1, that is 2 length. Right. Then we again keep increasing, keep traversing. Now our I gets at second index, it is 1. Right. Then we check if it's a 0 value. No, it is not a 0 value. Then we check if our count, 0 count is greater than k. No, it is not greater. Then we simply calculate our length. Our length will be 2 minus -1, that is 3. Perfect. This is our length. And we are required max length. Perfect. And then we compare, is it greater than our max length? Our max length, we are going to keep updating it. Let's say it's 3 for now. And then our I gets here. We check. If it's a 0, we are going to increase our 0 count and make it 2. Again, it is not greater than k. So we are not going to fall into this. Right? We are not going to fall into this. And we are going to calculate our length. Our length will be I minus j, that is 3 minus 4, that is 3 minus -1, that is 4. Our max length is going to become 4. Perfect. Now our I gets at 4th index, and now you see that it's a 0. So you're gonna increase 0 count to 3, and then you're gonna check if it is greater than your k. Yes, it is greater. So we are gonna move our j. We are gonna simply move our j to the next 0. It is not 0 here, right? If array of j is equal to 0, it is not 0. Here it is a 0. So we are gonna decrease our 0 count and it's going to become 2. Perfect. Now we calculate our length again. It's going to be I minus j, that is 3. Perfect. That is 3. Now again we move our I. And it's a numerical value, so we calculate, so we don't fall here in these condition, right? And our 0 count is equal to k, right? It is not greater. So the length will be length will be 5 minus j, that is 4. Right? So our max length is already 4. We are not gonna increase it. So now let's see what happens. Our I gets here, we are gonna increase our 0 count, is going to be 3. Then we check our 0 count is greater than k. Right? Our 0 count is greater than k. So we are gonna keep increasing our j till it gets to a I. Here it is not I, to a 0. Here it is not 0, here it is 0. Perfect. Then if we get at a 0, we are gonna decrease our 0 count. Perfect. It's going to remain 2. Perfect. And then here we want to calculate our length. It's going to be 6 minus j. That is 6 minus 3. Right? J is starting at third 3. So that's how you are going to calculate. I mean, we have already did the same dry run previously. So that's how you are going to calculate and eventually get our answer. Perfect. It's very simple. It's very easy. We have already discussed it. So that's it for this video. If you liked it, don't forget to like, comment and share. Thanks for watching.